Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our virtual Lunch and Learn. Today we have Clinical RN of Research, Kimberly Palmruder. She will be going over all about Ironwood Clinical Research Department. So please help me in welcoming Kimberly.
My name is Kimberly Palmruder. I'm one of the clinical research nurses here at Ironwood. I've been in research with Ironwood here for about 8.5 years. And so I'm going to talk to you about what we do in the research department here. Our research department mission, Ironwood Cancer and Research Center, is committed to the advancement of patient care as well as medical knowledge. Clinical research continues to transform the manner in which we practice. As a result, we're able to provide the highest level of care to our patients. Ironwood has a dedicated clinical research department devoted to assisting patients obtain greater access to groundbreaking oncology medications. By supporting clinical research today, we are able to offer our patients the newest treatment options before they're available to the public. Ironwood has been instrumental in assisting various sponsors and companies bring new oncology drugs to the market by participating in multiple clinical trials throughout the years. So clinical trials are conducted in various phases. Each one builds upon the other, and each phase is designed to answer certain questions about the drug that is being tested. So there's 4 phases. Phase 1 is testing the safety of the new investigational medication. At Ironwood, we do not participate in these trials. These are very intense and require a lot of time and resources. Phase 2 trials are studies in which the primary objective is to explore therapeutic efficacy in patients as well as to further assess the new drug's safety. The new drug is usually tested in patients with a particular type of cancer. Most often, new combinations of drugs are tested, and patients are always closely watched to determine if the new drug is effective. In the phase 2 studies, the new drug is not usually compared to the current standard of care treatment. If the drug is found to be effective, it can move on to the next phase of testing, which is the phase 3 clinical trial. And here at Ironwood, we do participate in some of the later phase 2 clinical trials. And then there's phase 3 trials. These are the ones which we do most of here at Ironwood. These are studies in which the primary objective is to demonstrate or confirm therapeutic benefit of the new drug. These trials compare the new drug to the standard of care drug. These are usually randomized and double-blind. Double-blind means that neither the study staff, the doctor, or the patient know which treatments the patient are receiving. And randomization means that the patients are assigned to treatment by chance, like the flip of a coin. Often this is based on several different factors of eligibility. And there can be more than 2 treatment groups in these phase 3 trials. The control group, which is what is the group of patients that gets the standard of care treatment. Other groups get the new treatment or different combinations of the new treatment with standard of care drugs. Phase 4 trials are studies that are not considered necessary for approval, but are often important for optimizing the drug's use and collecting data regarding side effects the drug may cause after it has been approved by the FDA for use. And we occasionally do these here at Ironwood. So in this diagram, you can see that it shows all the different stages of clinical trials. Preclinical, which we didn't talk about, is before it starts being tested on humans, and that can take several years. Phase 1 trials can take days or weeks. It's a smaller number of patients. Later phase 1 and phase 2 are safety trials. Typically there's more patients here, sometimes hundreds of patients. It can take weeks or months. And then efficacy and safety, which is your phase 3, there's often a much higher number of patients, and these can take several years. Many of the studies that we do in the phase 3 here, especially with our cancer patients, have 5 to 10 years of follow-up after treatment. How do you qualify for a clinical trial? So clinical trials have what we call inclusion and exclusion criteria, and these are the eligibility criteria. And these are different for each research study and each type of disease being studied. Some of the key criteria can include hormone receptor status and HER2 new status for breast cancer, biomarkers such as PD-L1, BRCA, EGFR, and there's many, many others, and there's new markers all the time. Performance status, which is your overall well-being, how well you're functioning. Are you driving? Are you able to walk? Are you using a walker? Do you sit up in your chair most of the day? Those sorts of things. Extent of disease, imaging like CT scans, PET scans, or MRI scans, and in some instances for hematology, it can be blood levels as well. Previous exposure to cancer treatments like chemotherapy, hormone therapy, radiation, or immunotherapy, and presence of other medical conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, COPD, history of hepatitis. Once we determine if you qualify for a study to participate, you have to all clinical trial participants must sign an informed consent document. These are typically very long documents. The idea of informed consent is having full knowledge and understanding and then making a voluntary decision to provide permission, and it's a continuous and ongoing process. The FDA believes that obtaining a research participant's verbal or written informed consent is only part of the process. Informed consent also involves providing a potential patient with enough information to allow for an informed decision about participation in the clinical trial, facilitating the patient's understanding about the information provided about the study, providing an appropriate amount of time for the patient to ask questions and to discuss with the family about a research study and whether or not you should participate. And at Ironwood, we really prefer when we talk to a patient about informed consent that they take the consent home and talk to family and friends. Obtaining the potential participants' voluntary agreement to participate and continuing to provide information as the trial continues. 8 elements of the informed consent: the description of the clinical investigation, risks and discomforts, benefits, alternative procedures or treatments, confidentiality, compensation and medical treatment in the event of an injury, context, and voluntary participation. So in order to be informed about a trial, you need to have the consent reviewed with you for what the treatment is, what the new treatment is, side effects, risks, procedures, expectations of the participant, and the expectations of the investigator, and make sure that all of the questions are answered. And once all of your questions are answered, you should voluntarily provide permission, and that's when you sign the consent. And it's a continuous and ongoing process, so anytime there's new safety information, you'll be informed as soon as we are informed about it, any updates to the trial. And that may include also that you may have to sign a consent multiple times throughout the time you're participating in a trial. When participating, do I know if I am receiving the drug or not? This is really dependent on the design of the trial. So there's different types of trials. One is open label. We do a number of these here at Ironwood. What this means is that the doctor and the research staff and the patient know what study treatment is being received, even if there's multiple arms on the study. There is typically no placebo arm in this type of study. A single blind study is when the doctor or the research staff and the sponsor know what the patient is getting, but the patient does not know what they're getting. And this typically involves a placebo. Double blind, we discussed previously, and in this type of trial, only the sponsor knows what the patient is getting. The doctor, research staff, and the patient do not know. This type of study does include a placebo. And in both the single blind and the double blind study, in cases of emergency, that blind can be broken, and if it's in the best interest of the patient, we can find out what it is that they're getting. So placebo in clinical trials, it's important to be able to say that the drugs being studied can be used, are superior to doing nothing. So that's why we use placebos. But at Ironwood, our first priority is always the best interest and well-being of the patient. When we decide to conduct trials here, with a placebo component, we only accept trials in which there's a standard of care treatment included in any placebo arm. The exception to that would be in a situation where the standard of care is observation only. And so in that case, having placebo or the study treatment is not withholding treatment from a patient. Some of those would be like you have surgery and then you just observe for a period of time. In that case, then doing study treatment or placebo would be giving you an option for something that you didn't already have. So what this means for you as the patient in clinical trials is that if you're assigned to a placebo arm, you'll still receive the best standard of care treatment that exists for the disease that you're being treated for. The takeaway from this is that seeing the word placebo in the title of a trial does not mean that there's a possibility you won't get any treatment at all. So are the treatments or study drugs being used in the research studies approved by the FDA? In some cases, yes, and in some, no. At Ironwood, we like to offer our patients as many options as possible. We participate in clinical trials that involve investigational drugs that are not FDA approved, but we also participate in trials where these drugs are already approved. And this could be that they're approved in another type of cancer or a different stage for the same disease. Some studies that we've done this with include Kisqali for breast cancer and Calquence for CLL. Another question that gets asked frequently is, do I participate in a research study when I've run out of options? Sometimes yes, but clinical trials are being conducted in all stages of cancer, not just for patients that have run out of options. We conduct trials in a number of different stages here. Most of our clinical trials are for advanced treatment, advanced disease, and many of the ones that we are taking on now are for first-line treatment for advanced disease or when you're first diagnosed with advanced disease. We've also done some trials in the adjuvant setting where we already have a standard of care and we're looking to either add a new drug to that standard of care or have a new drug as a standard of care. Costs involved when participating in a clinical trial. The drug or device that's being studied is typically provided at no cost to the patient. Most clinical trials will have some cost to the patients. Many of the procedures required by the study and the standard of care treatments or chemotherapies will be billed to the patient's insurance. So it's not a situation in clinical trials today where everything that we do is paid for by the sponsors. Anything that would normally be done as part of standard of care may be billed to the insurance. The other question that we get asked a lot is, will we get paid to be in a research study? And for most of the studies that we do in oncology, the answer to that is no. Unlike studies that you would hear about on the radio or TV, most cancer treatment studies do not pay patients to participate. That can be considered an inducement to participate in these trials. What research studies are we currently enrolling patients in at Ironwood? So we currently have clinical trials which involve immunotherapies, traditional chemotherapies, oral cancer medications. We have one vaccine trial that's just about to close. Some of our current enrolling studies involve lung cancer, breast cancer, lymphomas, prostate cancer, bladder cancer, biliary tract cancer, myelofibrosis, and CLL. You can see more details about our department on our website, which the link is here. It tells you about some of our current studies, past studies, and some general information about participating in a trial.
Thank you, Kimberly. We appreciate your presentation. We have one question here. And the question is, if I am interested in participating in a clinical research study, can I ask my oncologist to participate in one of those studies if I am already on a chemotherapy or radiation therapy regimen?
Absolutely. If there's a trial that you've heard of, you can certainly talk to your oncologist about it. It takes several months to get a trial up and running at a site. And so if you're already on treatment, you probably would be able to continue that treatment until this trial could be opened. It's not always possible to get all the studies that are available open at every site, but certainly starting with your oncologist is the best place to start.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Kimberly, once again for joining us today. And thank you to all of our viewers for joining us for our virtual Lunch and Learn. If you would like to have any information about this Lunch and Learn or any other of our Lunch and Learns, please visit us at our website, ironwoodcrc.com, and you can visit us on our Supportive Care Services tab. You can also email wellness@ironwoodcrc.com for additional information on classes and supportive care services support groups. And lastly, you can call us at 480-314-6660. Thank you so much and have a great day. Take care.